Dear students, today we will discuss a new topic, that is self-realization or self-actualization. First of all, what is the meaning of the term self-realization, also known as self-actualization? The term self-realization is often related to the concept of self-actualization, or it is also known as self-discovery, self-reflection, and self-exploration. So, as it is clear from the synonym of the word self-realization, it is also known as self-discovery, that is, to discover yourself, or self-reflection, that is, an clear having a clear image of yourself or oneself. As well as it is also known as self exploration, that is, to explore about your strengths, about your limitations, about your possibilities, about your potentialities, etc. It is an expression used in psychology, philosophy, spirituality, and Eastern religions. Thus, this term is equally used in the discipline of psychology as well as philosophy, spirituality, and even in Eastern religion. Now, if we have to define this term, what is self realization? It is defined as the fulfillment by oneself of the possibilities of one's character or personality. Thus, it is clear from this definition, this general definition, that it is the fulfillment by oneself of the possibilities of one's character or personality. Thus, it means that what a person can do, what type of potentiality he has, and what he can do with this his potentialities, this comes under the category self realization. Now, some of the expert views which can be considered for this topic. First, according to Merriam Webster Dictionary, self realization is fulfillment of oneself of the possibilities of one's character and personality, which we have already defined. Now, as far as Hinduism or the philosophy of Hinduism is concerned, it is for the Hindu religion, self realization, also known as Atma Janna, is the knowledge of true self beyond both delusion and identification with material phenomena. It refers to self identification. In other words, in Hinduism or in Hinduism philosophy, self realization is known as Atma Janna, that is, to know about your Atma, or it is also known as self identification. Similarly, according to Buddhism, Buddhism defined the existence of separate self. They point to the inherent possibility of attaining awakening, not to the existence of separate self. That is, according to this philosophy, the reality is an undivided whole. Awakening is the realization of this self. So, if we have to put simply what Buddhism promotes, they say that what is self realization? It is the knowledge of the your reality about yourself. That is, you know completely or in totality about yourself. Next, according to Sikhism or according to Sikh philosophy, self realization is known as Atam China or Aap Pachane. It means through self realization, we know about ourselves or we identify ourselves. Thus, in Sikhism, Atam Pachane or Atam China or Aap Pachane means purifying the self from false ego. That is, when we identify our true self, which is beyond our any kind of egoistic attitude or philosophy, then we are in the process of self realization. These are some of the expert views in the concept of self realization. Now we move to some Western understanding which focus on this term. Under this Western understanding, one of the most important um, contribution is given by humanistic school of psychology, which worked on the concept of self realization. And the main propounder of this school is a very famous psychologist known as Abraham Maslow. He discussed this concept of self realization in his theory of motivation, where he presented the needs in human being in an hierarchical order, and the self realization is one of the highest need in this hierarchy. Thus, according to Maslow, what is self realization? Self realization is the impulse to convert oneself into one into what one is capable of being. So, as far as Maslow believes, what is self realization? It is the impulse to convert oneself into what that is one is capable, that is what we can do, what is the capacity we possess when we convert this into reality, or when we convert ourselves into what we can capable of doing. This means we are in the process of self realization. Based on the concept of Maslow, the most common meaning given to self realization is that of psychological growth. In other words, self realization refers to the psychological growth. Now, some of the basic concepts we have discussed about the term self realization. Now, we move towards the term or the concept importance of self realization. Till now we have talked about what is self realization, how different experts in different fields have defined this term, and now why we are talking this term self realization and why it is included in the curriculum of B.Ed. That is, it has certain importance or implications which we discuss now. First, cultivate the habit of finding solution to various problems. Through self realization, we can cultivate the habit of solution to various problems. That is, we can uh, develop the solution, we can develop the problem solving attitude among our students. Then helps in gaining inner peace. Through self realization, we can be in a process of gaining inner peace. We feel internally satisfied if we realize ourselves. Then it increase our patience. It means the person having the self realization ability, they have increased level of patience. Then next is eternal happiness. That is that type of happiness which is eternal, which is everlasting. So self realization helps us in gaining eternal happiness. Next is freedom from worries and fear. The person who is a self realizer, he remains free from all kinds of worries and fear and live a healthy life. Next, self realization foster spiritual health. That is, this type of notion or this type of idea helps us in developing or enhancing our spiritual health. Next, experience of the true eternal self. When we realize ourself, then we have the experience of true eternal self. That is, we come to know about the actual meaning of our existence. Next, smoother relationship. Thus, self realization helps us in maintaining smoother relationships. Next, scientific solution to inner and external conflict. Whenever we are in a state of conflict, that is due to some inner problems, due to some external environment influence, this type of realization helps us to provide a scientific solution or to come out of these conflicts. Next is freedom of oneness with everyone. Thus, this type of uh, realization promotes feeling of brotherhood or unitedness. Next, right vision towards the life. One important characteristics of this concept is that it helps in developing right vision towards the life. We develop a good or a right attitude towards the life. What is life? What is the meaning of life? What is our purpose of existence? Why God has made us? So, it helps us in gaining the right vision. Next, service to humanity. Another important characteristics of this concept is that it promotes a feeling of service to humanity. When we realize ourselves, we give our services to humanity without any bias or prejudice. Next, fearlessness and independence. This feeling, this experience create a feeling of fearlessness and independence. An individual who is self-realizing or who is self-actualizing is a fearless individual, living his life without any fear and without any dependency. Next, to gain infinite knowledge, power, and bliss. This type of experience helps us to gain infinite knowledge. That is the knowledge which is unlimited, which is infinite. And moreover, we get the power, eternal power, as well as a bliss to live this life peacefully. Next, it helps in developing calmness. We develop an inner peace, a feeling of calm, uh, if we practice the concept of self realization. Next, to avoid differences of opinion. This helps us to avoid any kind of issues, any kind of differences of opinion. Next, to remove the gender bias. If we actualize ourselves, then we can uplift ourselves from all kind of gender bias. Next, to inculcate patience or to increase our patience, that we have already discussed, that this type of experience helps us in gaining more and more patient attitude towards life. Next, to uplift the self image. Moreover, this type of experience helps us to uplift our self image. That is, we gain confidence, we have a good image of ourselves in our eyes. Thus, if we want to conclude, we can say that self realization or self actualization is an important concept, and the very few person has the possibility to reach at this level, which is also discussed by Maslow in his need hierarchy theory. As most of us spend our life in fulfilling our basic needs. So only few people reach at the top ladder in the hierarchy of need, where he or she is in a position to actualize his or herself. In other words, has the ability to realize or actualize whatever potentialities he or she possesses. Uh, for example, if a person is very good in singing, so if unless and until he does not practice the art of singing, he cannot actualize or realize his self. So for us to be at peace, we have to bring it to that level, so that we can uh, we can actualize or we can realize whatever is present in ourself. So this is all about the concept and importance of self realization. Now Maslow has given some characteristics which highlight the uh, people having the higher level of self realization or actualization. So now we do the characteristics of self realizer or actualizer. First, they are open to experience. They are open to experience means they are not limited in their views, or they are open to any kind of experience, any kind of challenge coming in their life. Next, they are in tune with themselves, their inner beings. Moreover, they are in tune with themselves. They don't criticize themselves. They accept whatever strengths and limitations they have. They have an inner contact with their self. They are spontaneous and independent. Moreover, they are spontaneous. They react to the situation in a spontaneous manner, but always in a wise manner. And they are independent in their views. Next, they are fully devoted to their efforts towards their goal. It means they are dedicated towards the achievement of their goal. Next, they have full dedication to some cause outside themselves. It also means that they are not fully dedicated to their aim, but they have full dedication to some cause outside themselves. That is, they indulge in pro-social behavior. They resist conformity to the culture. That is, they are independent. They don't follow the rigid practices of a particular culture. Next, they have tendency to have peak experiences that are spiritually or emotionally satisfied. Peak experience is the experience where you feel internal bliss, or you feel that you have achieved everything in life. So few people have this type of feeling, that is known as peak experience, where they are fully satisfied, fully contented with their life. They are reality centric. It means people having self realization ability, they focus on the reality. They don't live in an imaginary world. So these are some of the characteristics of self realizer or actualizer. So this is all about the topic self realization.